Imagine for a moment that you've been betrayed. A friend you trusted has spread lies about you. A colleague at work deliberately undermines your efforts, smiling to your face while poisoning your reputation behind closed doors. Or maybe it's even closer to home. Someone in your family who constantly manipulates, belittles, or mocks you. In that moment, your heart burns. Every instinct screams to fight back, to lash out, to strike them down with the same venom they used against you. And yet, what if doing so makes you no different from them? What if the greatest defeat of an evil person is not your anger, but your refusal to surrender your peace? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." These words are simple, but they pierce deeper than any sword. Evil people thrive on chaos, on pulling you into their world of spite and rage. They win when you lose yourself. But what if there's another way? What if you could stand unshaken, calm as a rock in the storm, and in doing so, take from them the only weapon they truly have, your reaction? The question is, how do we master this strength? How do we calmly defeat evil without becoming it? We live in an age where evil rarely announces itself with swords and armies. More often, it wears the face of envy, gossip, manipulation, or subtle cruelty. In our workplaces, it appears as the colleague who undermines us for their own advancement. Online, it emerges as strangers who hurl insults from the safety of a screen. In relationships, it can be the quiet drip of control, gaslighting, or betrayal. And each time we are tempted to respond in kind, to let anger rise and consume us until we've become a reflection of the very thing we despise. This is why the Stoics remain so relevant. They lived in times of political corruption, betrayal, and violence. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while surrounded by deceitful men plotting for power. Seneca navigated the court of Nero, one of Rome's most infamous emperors. Epictetus endured slavery, cruelty, and injustice. Yet all three taught the same principle. We cannot always control the evil around us, but we can always control the soul within us. The modern world tells us strength is loud retaliation, but the Stoics remind us true strength is composure. They show us that evil people cannot be defeated on their terms, because when we mirror their malice, we lose what makes us free. Instead, victory comes from discipline, calm, and reason, from mastering ourselves first. In this journey, we will explore 7 timeless lessons from Stoicism that reveal how to confront evil people without hatred, without fear, and without surrendering our peace. These are not abstract ideas. They are practical weapons for everyday life. When the boss humiliates you in front of others, when false accusations spread, when betrayal cuts deep. Through these lessons, you will see how to stand firm in the face of injustice, not with rage, but with the unshakable calm of a soul rooted in wisdom. The question is not whether you will encounter evil people, you will. The question is, will you let them steal your peace, or will you rise above them with a strength they cannot touch? Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." In these few words lies the first Stoic weapon against evil. Control what you can, release what you cannot. Evil people thrive on manipulation. They provoke, prod, and push, hoping you will explode or collapse so they can use your reaction against you. They want to pull the strings of your emotions like a puppet master. But what happens if you cut the strings? What if, no matter what they did, you refuse to dance to their tune? Consider a modern example. Imagine a co-worker deliberately embarrassing you in a meeting, making subtle comments to make you look incompetent. The instinct is to snap back, to raise your voice, to fight on their battlefield. But in doing so, you prove their point. You lose the respect of the room, and worse, you lose control of yourself. Now imagine another approach. You stay calm, unshaken, responding with clarity and measured words. The room notices. The one who tried to provoke you looks smaller, exposed by their own pettiness. By holding your composure, you've defeated them without raising your voice. The Stoics compared life to being an actor on a stage. You don't control the script, the set, or the other actors. You control only your role, how you choose to perform it. When evil enters your story, it is not your task to rewrite them. It is your task to act your part with excellence, regardless of theirs. Evil people may strike, but only you decide whether their strike lands in your soul. In practical terms, this means pausing before you respond. It means remembering in heated arguments that silence is sometimes stronger than words. It means breathing deeply when your emotions scream for revenge. Each time you master this pause, you train yourself to reclaim what is yours: your mind, your peace, your dignity. Evil cannot thrive where it cannot control you. The calm soul is untouchable because it fights only the battles within its control. This is the beginning of Stoic victory, not in conquering others, but in conquering yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best way to avenge yourself is not to become like the wrongdoer." This is the second Stoic lesson. Refuse to imitate the very evil that seeks to harm you. Nothing corrupts the soul faster than the desire to strike back with the same poison. When you mirror malice, you do not defeat it, you absorb it. And in that moment, the enemy has already won, for you have become their reflection. Think of a time when someone wronged you deeply. Perhaps they spread rumors, stole credit for your work, or betrayed your trust. The first impulse is retaliation, to hurt them as they hurt you. But step back and ask, what would this achieve? Revenge may satisfy for a fleeting second, but soon it chains you to the very darkness you sought to resist. You may win the skirmish, but you lose the greater war for your character. The Stoics saw virtue as the highest good. They believed no external harm could stain you unless you let it pull you from integrity. If someone lies, it is their lie. If someone cheats, it is their disgrace. Why would you carry their burden by joining them in it? Evil thrives on multiplication. It spreads when one wrong begets another. Refusing to imitate it is how you cut its line of growth. A modern example is the workplace filled with sabotage and politics. Imagine colleagues forming alliances through deceit. If you stoop to their tactics, perhaps you win a temporary advantage, but you lose trust, self-respect, and long-term peace. If instead you choose the harder path of integrity, you may face setbacks, but eventually truth reveals itself and your character stands unshaken. The daily application of this lesson is a conscious question. If I respond this way, will I become like them? When anger tempts you, pause and remember Marcus's warning. When deceit beckons, remind yourself that honor cannot be bought with short-term victories. Train yourself to see evil as a mirror held up before you. Your task is not to copy the reflection, but to remain unchanged, steady in who you are. By refusing to imitate evil, you rob it of its greatest triumph, the ability to make you like itself. This is how a Stoic defeats an enemy, not by trading blow for blow, but by standing so firmly in virtue that the enemy cannot drag you down to their level. Marcus Aurelius observed, "No one does wrong willingly." In this thought, echoed from Socratic teaching, lies the third Stoic lesson. See the evil of others as ignorance rather than pure malice. Most people act from blindness, not from an informed choice to destroy goodness. They stumble in the dark, driven by envy, fear, or misunderstanding. When you see their actions through this lens, anger begins to dissolve. You do not excuse their behavior, but you strip it of its power to poison your heart. Imagine walking down a crowded street when a blind man accidentally steps on your foot. Would you erupt in fury, scream at him for being careless, or plot revenge? Of course not. You recognize his limitation. You see he cannot help what he cannot see. The same is true for many who wrong us. They step on our dignity, our trust, our peace, but often because they do not see clearly the damage they cause. They are blinded by their own vices. This perspective shifts the battlefield. If you see someone as ignorant rather than wicked, you begin to pity instead of hate. You respond with boundaries rather than vengeance. You stop feeding the fire of their cruelty with the dry wood of your outrage. Instead, you stand firm, calm, and rational, refusing to give them the satisfaction of your fury. Consider the modern example of online hostility. Strangers, fueled by anonymity, hurl insults and threats. If you see them as deliberate enemies, you may spend hours fuming or retaliating. But if you view them as blind, caught in ignorance, you take their words less personally. You might ignore them altogether, recognizing that their insult reveals more about their wounds than about your worth. Practically, this lesson requires a shift in daily thought. Each time you face cruelty, remind yourself, if they truly understood what is good, they would not act this way. By reframing their behavior as blindness, you guard your heart against bitterness. You do not surrender justice. You still protect yourself, set limits, and seek truth. But you do so without hatred corroding your soul. Evil people lose their grip when you see them not as terrifying monsters, but as the blind stumbling in darkness. And once you see this, their power to shake your peace diminishes. You stand taller, calmer, not because the world has changed, but because your perception has. Seneca wrote, "A man is as great as the things he lets offend him." Here we find the fourth Stoic lesson. Turn insults into training. Evil people often rely not on physical harm, but on words meant to wound, humiliate, or provoke. They want to see your face flush, your voice crack, your composure break. Yet every insult is an opportunity, a test of how firmly you command yourself. Each sting becomes a weight you can lift to grow stronger. Think of insults like stones thrown at you. You can either pick them up and carry them as burdens, or you can use them to build a fortress. The Stoic path is to see insults not as shackles, but as tools of resilience. The more you practice receiving them without reaction, the less power they hold. Over time, what once felt sharp as a blade begins to feel like nothing more than a gust of wind brushing past your skin. In today's world, this lesson is most visible in the realm of social media. Online insults come cheap, delivered by strangers hiding behind screens. Many spend hours defending themselves, crafting responses, or nursing anger over cruel words. But imagine instead treating those comments as sparring partners in a training ground. Every insult ignored becomes proof of your strength. Every calm response, or even better, no response at all, builds the muscle of indifference to what does not matter. The Stoics believed that the only true harm comes from vice, not from words. If an insult is false, why be angered? It does not touch the truth of who you are. If it is true, then take it as feedback, a chance to improve. Either way, the insult has no power unless you hand it your peace. A practical exercise is journaling. At the end of each day, write down one insult, slight, or provocation you endured. Then ask yourself, how did I respond? Did I give away my calm? Or did I remain steady? Over time, you will begin to see the progress. Fewer lost tempers, more moments of quiet strength. Evil people seek to draw you into their theater of drama. When you refuse to play the part they've written for you, when you turn their insults into training instead of torment, you defeat them in the most humiliating way possible, by proving they cannot touch the fortress of your soul. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the fifth Stoic lesson. Keep the inner fortress. The world outside is chaotic, full of treachery, insults, and betrayals. Evil people thrive by trying to invade your peace, to drag your mind into their storm. But the Stoics remind us that no matter how violent the storm outside, you remain free to guard the citadel within. Picture your mind as a fortress built of stone. Enemies may gather at the gates, shouting threats, throwing rocks, even trying to break through. But the key truth is this: they can never enter unless you open the door. You decide whether their words are allowed into your thoughts. You decide whether their actions are given the power to shake your soul. The fortress stands as long as you guard it. History gives us striking examples. Prisoners of war, stripped of freedom and comfort, have endured unimaginable cruelty by clinging to their inner freedom. Viktor Frankl, though not a Stoic, but deeply aligned with their wisdom, survived the concentration camps by realizing that his captors could not take away his freedom to choose his response. This is Stoicism in its purest form, the refusal to let external evil dominate the inner self. In modern life, the assaults are less obvious but equally dangerous. A boss humiliates you in front of colleagues, a partner mocks you in public, a stranger curses you in traffic. Each is a test of whether you will hand them the keys to your inner fortress. If you let anger, bitterness, or despair rush in, the fortress falls. But if you remain calm, unmoved, the attack collapses against your walls like waves breaking on rock. A practical way to strengthen this fortress is through daily meditation or morning reflection. Begin each day reminding yourself, "Today I will face deceit, arrogance, betrayal, and insult, but none of these can harm me unless I let them inside." By anticipating assaults, you blunt their surprise and fortify your defenses. Evil people lose their hold when they discover they cannot reach the one thing that matters most: your mind. They may attack your name, your body, your possessions, but if your fortress remains sealed, they cannot touch your true self. The greatest victory is not in striking them down, but in standing untouchable, master of your own soul. Seneca wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." This leads us to the sixth Stoic lesson: shame them with calm excellence. Evil people expect fury. They want you to shout, to slam doors, to lose control. It is their fuel, the proof that their schemes are working. But when you remain calm, when your voice stays steady, when your actions are guided by reason instead of rage, you expose them. Their ugliness stands in contrast to your composure, and in that moment, they are undone without you lifting a hand. Think of a heated argument. One person raises their voice, veins bulging, face red with fury. The other listens, breathing slowly, replying with clarity and dignity. Who looks stronger? Who looks in control? The angry one appears unhinged, while the calm one commands respect. This is the essence of shaming evil with excellence. You do not need to match their heat. By staying cool, you reveal their weakness. A practical example comes from professional life. Imagine being publicly attacked in a meeting, accused falsely by someone seeking to discredit you. If you fire back instantly with equal aggression, the room sees two people fighting. But if you pause, thank them for their comment, and calmly present the truth, the contrast is glaring. They look small, you look elevated. Your calmness itself becomes the rebuke. The Stoics understood that anger clouds reason. By delaying your response even for a moment, you give yourself time to choose words that disarm rather than inflame. Seneca often warned that anger is temporary madness, the enemy of wisdom. By refusing to rush into it, you maintain mastery over yourself, and that mastery is a weapon no enemy can withstand. In daily life, practice what might be called the calm face. When insulted, when provoked, let your expression remain steady, your tone even. Inside you may feel the stirrings of rage, but outside you project the dignity of a soul unbroken. Over time, the inside will match the outside, and calm will become your natural state. Evil people crumble when their provocations fail. They depend on reaction to validate their power. By meeting them with calm excellence, You strip them of that power, leaving them humiliated not by your attack, but by the brilliance of your restraint. True victory comes not by overpowering them, but by outshining them with the steady light of reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This final Stoic lesson is the most powerful of all. Focus on living well, not on defeating them. Evil people seek to entangle you in their battles, to make your life about them. But the greatest triumph is to rise so far above their reach that their schemes no longer matter. Your life becomes a testament not to their influence but to your virtue. When you pour your energy into revenge, you let your enemies live rent-free in your mind. When you obsess over their downfall, you neglect your own growth. Marcus understood this deeply. Surrounded by betrayals, conspiracies, and constant political games, he still chose to focus on his duty as emperor, father, and philosopher. He did not waste his life plotting the ruin of others. He invested it in becoming the man he himself could respect. Consider a modern example. A leader is slandered by rivals, mocked by critics, doubted by peers. Instead of drowning in defense or retaliation, he keeps serving faithfully, working tirelessly, staying true to his mission. Over time, the slander fades, the critics move on, and what remains is his legacy of integrity. His enemies are forgotten, but his virtue endures. That is the ultimate defeat of evil, irrelevance in the face of goodness. In your daily life, this lesson means shifting focus away from the wrongdoer and toward your own path. Ask yourself each evening, did I live as a good man or woman today, regardless of what others did to me? Evil may surround you, but it cannot define you unless you allow it. Your task is not to control the actions of others, but to shape your own character with discipline, courage, and compassion. By focusing on your own virtue, you deprive evil of its hold. You refuse to let bitterness write your story. Instead, you write it yourself with ink drawn from wisdom and pages filled with dignity. Evil people fade like shadows at dawn, but the one who chooses to live well shines with a light no darkness can overcome. This is the highest Stoic victory, not the downfall of others, but the rise of your own soul into greatness. When you learn to control what you can and release what you cannot, you take the first step in weakening the grip of those who wish you harm. But the question remains, if you've mastered your response, how do you ensure you don't become like them in the process? Refusing to imitate evil preserves your character, but it also raises another challenge. If their actions are so destructive, how can you bear them without hatred? To answer this, we must learn to see their wrongs not as deliberate malice alone, but often as blindness and ignorance. Understanding their ignorance shifts your anger into perspective, yet the world is still full of stings, barbs, and insults. How do we withstand the daily assaults on our dignity without breaking? The Stoics remind us that each insult can become a training ground, an exercise in strengthening the mind against harm. But insults are only the beginning. Some attacks cut deeper, shaking the very core of who we are. How do we protect that core when the storm grows fierce? By remembering that within us lies an inner fortress that no one can breach without our consent. Still, building the fortress is not enough. We must also face the provocations that come directly at us, expecting us to collapse in anger. Here, the Stoic path reveals a weapon more powerful than rage, the calm excellence that exposes the weakness of those who seek to provoke. And yet, even calmness in the face of evil is not the ultimate goal. To stop at merely resisting is to live in reaction. The final lesson calls us higher, to focus not on defeating them at all, but on living so well, so virtuously, that their existence becomes irrelevant to our peace and purpose. Evil will always exist in this world. It may come through betrayal, slander, envy, or open hostility, but it will always be there in some form. The Stoics never promised a life free of such challenges. Instead, they offered a way to remain unbroken in the midst of them. The lessons we have explored are not strategies of weakness, but of unmatched strength, the kind of strength that cannot be stolen, no matter how vicious the enemy. By controlling what you can and releasing what you cannot, you take back the power of your own mind. By refusing to imitate evil, you guard your character from corruption. By seeing wrongdoers as blind in their ignorance, you loosen the grip of hatred on your heart. By turning insults into training, you grow stronger where others grow bitter. By keeping the inner fortress, you remain untouchable in the face of storms. By shaming them with calm excellence, you expose their weakness without descending into rage. And by focusing on living well instead of defeating them, you rise above, leaving their schemes to wither in the shadow of your light. The Stoics remind us that true victory is not found in destroying others, but in mastering ourselves. Evil people can strip away possessions, reputation, even the body, but they cannot touch the soul that stands firm in virtue. Seneca wrote, "To bear trials with a calm mind robs misfortune of its strength. In the same way, to face evil with calmness robs it of its power." In the end, your greatest triumph is not that your enemies fall, but that you remain unshaken. You walk through life like a rock in the sea, beaten by waves, but never moved from your place. The storms rage, the winds howl, and still you endure, calm, resolute, and free. This is the Stoic way of defeating evil, not by mirroring it, not by bowing to it, but by standing above it with the quiet strength of an unconquered soul. Now the question is yours to answer. Which of these lessons speaks most to your life right now? Perhaps you're facing betrayal and need the reminder not to become like those who wrong you. Maybe you feel the sting of insults and must learn to turn them into training. Or maybe your greatest task is to guard the inner fortress of your mind so no one can rob you of your peace. Take a moment today to reflect. Write in your journal which of the 7 lessons you will practice this week. Carry one Stoic truth with you into your daily battles. When the provocation comes, pause, breathe, and remember the wisdom of those who stood unshaken in far harsher times. If this message has given you strength, share it with someone who is struggling against toxic people or injustice. They too can find freedom in these timeless truths. And if you want to continue growing in this path of resilience, wisdom, and calm, make sure to subscribe so that together we can keep walking the Stoic way. Evil cannot stand against a disciplined soul, and when you choose to live with virtue, you not only defeat your enemies, you transcend them. Your calm becomes your shield, your wisdom becomes your weapon, and your life itself becomes the victory.